Hey guys, welcome back to Love Your Shelf. I'm Tracy, and today I want to talk about books that I've read that start with the letter B. A few weeks ago, I did a video about books I've read that start with A, and there was like 25 books that I talked about. I didn't talk about all of them. Like, I have read the Animorphs series. There is on here for B, The Battle of the Labyrinth, which is the third book for Percy Jackson. Something like that. But I'm just going to do the whole Percy Jackson series under P and the Maze Runner series under M and Mockingjay under M. So M's going to have a lot of good series, but I wanted to go through books I've read that start with B today. So the first one on the list is The Bane Chronicles. And I originally just read this, even though I was introduced to Magnus Bane, who is a Cassandra Clare character, when I read the Clockwork Prince, Clockwork Princess, and Clockwork Angel series, which I 100% love. Magnus Bane was my favorite character in that book, so I finally got around to reading the Bane Chronicles. And originally there was like a whole bunch of short stories that came out with it, and then it ended up being a book. Cassandra Clare's not the only author in it though, and I didn't love it, but that's okay because I still love Magnus Bane. So Be Honest, You're Not Into Him Either is a book that I read like in my teens. So He's Not That Into You is that, and then Be Honest, You're Not That Into Him Either, when I was dating like a million people. It was actually really helpful. Beartown is so amazing. I 100% give Beartown 5 stars. It is the first book in a series, and I was really worried that I might not be as interested in it because it's a book about hockey, and I probably would like hockey, but I don't really know. Like, I've never really watched hockey, but I do like a lot of different sports. So it was interesting because it's not just about hockey, and also like how important hockey is in that town is very, it made me yearn for my baseball years. Even though it was about hockey, like, I love baseball, I loved basketball. I just don't get to play that stuff as much anymore, but I know what it's like to live and breathe a sport, and it really brought back those memories, and it was very just nostalgic for me. I loved it. It is also it's a story about a teenager who was raped. So FYI, trigger warning for that. And it's amazing how Frederick Backman, as a man, can so well put together the feelings of a teenager after rape. Like, it was an amazing book. I loved it. 5 stars. A Beautiful Poison by Lydia Kang is the next book that starts with a B. I gave this 5 stars as well. I read it a long time ago. It's kind of like Great Gatsby meets a murder mystery. And it's pretty cool. I don't know if I read it now that I've read so many other books, if it would hold up. But I probably read it when I'd read like maybe 150 books, and now I'm over 400. So yeah, I don't know. I gave it 5 stars. I wonder if I would still. It's very interesting. The next is Becoming by Michelle Obama, which I also loved. I didn't ever rate it, but I'm going to go back and give it a ratings for this editing that I'm, for when I edit this video. So you'll see it like here or there. There'll be a rating. But I didn't originally rate it because I was at a point where I wasn't rating autobiographies or memoirs because it doesn't make sense. Like, it's not helpful really to rate someone's life and how they wrote about it, but I still feel like as a book I should be rating it as far as fluidity for the writing style and the information that you get and how helpful it is, or how much it makes you feel, or whatever it ends up doing, how they portray everything, which still also actually doesn't really seem fair, but I'll do it for this. So Beezus and Ramona, obviously I read when I was younger, by Beverly Cleary, and Beverly Cleary and Beezus and Ramona. I think they're sisters. It's been a long time, but it's a good children's book. Before the Coffee Gets Cold, I read last year, and it is a good book. It has like 4 or 5 short stories about people that go into this cafe where there's like so many specific rules, but with those rules you can go back in time or forward in time or both, and like know if the choices that you made were the right choices. There's a whole bunch of rules that go along with it that are very odd, and I didn't love the first story, but the other stories I did like. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath it's amazing. It's incredible. It's about a woman that's struggling with depression as she navigates her early adult years, and it's very moving. The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is hilarious. That's also like a children's book. If you have kids and you want to read them something for Christmas that's a little different, I 100% recommend that. The Between Boyfriends book, a collection of cautiously hopeful essays, was actually really helpful for me when I read it way back in the day, because it's about just embracing being single, and it's not important to have a man define you. And most people probably know that now. Like, I feel like millennials get it, but I grew up Gen Z, and that's not something that we were told. And so, yeah, it was a good book. Between the World and Me, I read that last year. It's by Ta-Nehisi Coates. It is absolutely incredible. It is an open letter to his son about what it means to be a Black man in America and how to navigate all of the feelings and emotions and scared, like everything that goes along with it. And each word that he uses, it's short, it's like 150 pages. I 100% recommend anyone to read it. It's such a good book, and he's so meticulous with every single word that he writes. It's incredible. The BFG is also a book that I read back in the day by Roald Dahl, but I bet if I read it now, I'd still love it as much. BFG stands for Big Friendly Giant, and it's just like a feel-good book. Big Sur by Jack Kerouac, I also read last year, and I was kind of disappointed by it. It is a true story, so it's not like On the Road again. He like uses everybody's full everything instead of like saying Dean Cassidy, and it's really about someone else. And what I really liked about it was when he was in Big Sur and the waves and the he like has pages and pages about him hearing all the noises that the waves make that he hears while he's there. And I loved that portion of it, but he also has like this weird, like, dumb romance. I wouldn't call it a romance, in the middle of it, and I didn't appreciate that really. It was sad, after having read On the Road. And I think that a lot of it has to do with just where he was at in his life, which is also interesting to read about, but wasn't what I was looking for. Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. I really hope I didn't mess that up. I think it's a trilogy. When I originally started, I don't think it was. I think there was only one. And actually, there might have been 2 by then, but I think it's a trilogy overall, might be a series. But it is about a woman who essentially is at an alien academy, if I remember correctly, and it's really good. It's very interesting. I read something about the author that was like, if you don't know where you're going in your story, ask your child. They have enough imagination to bring anything to like fruition. And That's amazing. Like, and so she took things that her kids told her should be in the story and she put that in there and it flowed very well. It was a really interesting story. I want to read the other two and I probably will do that soon, but I haven't got around to it yet. Black Coffee Blues by Henry Rollins. So I originally just saw an interview with Henry Rollins and was like, I really want to read something by him. He sounds really cool. He's a very adventurous, like, let's get at it, let's do shit type of guy. And so I picked up Black Coffee Blues because it's called Black Coffee Blues and I love coffee and blues, so heck yeah. No, I couldn't stand it. I really wanted it to be better. I kept going. He talks about, like, he has little stories that are like a few pages or sometimes a half a page, sometimes like 10 pages at most, but there's like 167 pages or 167 stories, and it's like 2/3 of the book, but it's not what the whole book is about. And it's about people dying. Essentially, most of it is about just like horrible deaths, and it's too depressing for me, and it made no sense, if that makes sense. Like, I'm sure there was a reason for it. I should probably look into that, but it wasn't. It was too much. It was too much for me. Too much depression. The Black Prism by Brent Weeks is in the Lightbringer series. I think there's 5 books. All the books are over 600 pages. I like the book, but not enough to read like 3,000 pages, I think. At least not all at once. So that's the only book I've read is The Black Prism so far. What I will say though is that Brent Weeks does something in this book. I won't tell you what it is, but I don't know, like, if I went to write something, I'd be like, that's too difficult, I don't know how to write this, and he figures it out, and he does it so well. So I did enjoy that. There's the story aspect of it I did really like. I just don't, there's so many moving parts, and that's why it's so long. And I'm sure that there's like even more moving parts in all of the other ones, and so it's needed, but it's not, it's just a lot. 3,000 pages is a lot to commit to, so I don't know yet. But I originally read that because one of my best friends told me that she really enjoyed it, and I do enjoy it. It's just a lot. The Book of Dreams by Nina George is a really good book. It has a lot of things within it, so I feel like I can't talk about it too much. But Nina George is the same person that wrote The Little Paris Bookshop, and she's just a really awesome writer. I love the fluidity of her writing in general. She's a good storyteller. The Book of Dreams does have to do with a kid and an adult in the hospital and their dreams. So it is very interesting, and I would recommend it. The Book of Longings by Sue Monk Kidd is the first Sue Monk Kidd book that I read, and it is about Jesus's wife, which I thought was an interesting thing to think about, because a lot of people talk about how the Bible isn't whole and Jesus could have had a wife, and it's very interesting, but it's about his wife wanting to be able to write, and her desire to do that, and how she, like, not deals with, but what she gets to, how she gets to have a future and a life with Jesus while he's still doing all the things he's doing, and then still, like, come to be able to do the things she wants to do. It's very different, very interesting. The Book of Lost Friends by Lisa Wingate. The Book of Lost Friends is a book that has a whole bunch of names in it so that she can try to find her family. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was good. I did give it 4 stars, but like, I enjoyed reading it, but now I barely remember it, and I read that a few years ago. The Book Thief is absolutely one of the best classic books I've ever read, and I'm quoting that because, like, what constitutes a classic, I don't really know, but it is an incredible book. It's told by, your narrator is Death, or like a Grim Reaper sort of character during World War. And it is so amazing. And Marcus Zuzak, everything I've ever read by him, he makes me think forever about the books that I've read by him. They're incredible. I highly recommend reading The Book Thief if you've never read it, because it's just so good. Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. It's all right. The Boston Girl by Anita Diamant. Also all right. It was good. But Boundaries, When to Say Yes, How to Say No to Take Control of Your Life. Actually, I read this a few years ago with one of my friends, and there's like a workbook for it as well. It's a self-help book about, knowing how to put boundaries up and learning how to do that, and understanding that if people don't respect your boundaries, like, that's it. Like, you put this boundary here. If they have a problem with it, if they're getting mad, that's on them. It's not on you. And I think that helped me a lot. I'm a big people pleaser, so there's definitely things I've taken from that I've utilized in my real life. Boxcar Children is a series that I read. Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown. Such a good book. So the next few of these are actually self-help books, but Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown is really great. The word braving is an acronym for other things. So V is vault. And I don't remember all of them, but vault is my favorite one. I've talked about that before, where it's like, this is someone told you something, and that's their thing to tell, and you don't need to tell anybody that. You keep it in a vault, and I really like that. It's kind of like braving the wilderness. It's like morals to live by and things to live by, to just be a better person and have more vulnerable, wholesome relationships. And I really enjoy that. The next one is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, How to Lose Your Mind and Create Something. And it's by Create a New One. And it's by Joe Dispenza. Honestly, this is about really, really recreating your whole psychologic makeup to be a better person. And it's very scientific and it's very interesting, but it's very hard to put into play. So if you're interested in the science of breaking habits, I would recommend it. If you're interested in, as a person, how to help yourself break habits, I don't think it is as helpful as like Atomic Habits by James Clear. Britt Marie Was Here is by Frederick Backman, and it's about a woman who left her husband after he had a heart attack because she found out that he was cheating on her. And she's very lost. Like, she'd been with him for decades. She's older, and she ends up going to a town and becoming like a soccer coach somehow. And she's a very weird, interesting person that you... if you knew her in person, it would be hard to get over some of the quirky things she does, but she's actually very interesting and I like her. So those are the books that I've read that start with B, and I'm very interested in things that you guys have read that start with B. I do, at the end of this, want to wrap up and say what my favorite book was and my least favorite book of these, and honestly, I would have to say either Beartown or The Book Thief would be my favorite. Probably The Book Thief. Like, The Book Thief is number one for sure. And my least favorite book is Black Coffee Blues by Henry Rollins. So those are the books I've read that start with B, my least favorite and my most favorite, and everything in between. Thank you so much for joining me today at Love Your Shelf. I hope you guys have a great day. Namaste.